If you've got any offers from a drama school, but you haven't yet decided if you're going to accept one or which you're going to accept, then this video is for you. If you've received any offers from a drama school, then first of all, I just want to say a huge well done. If you haven't received any offers this year, then I'll leave another video linked up above which might be helpful for you. Also, I'm aware that some people might not have had all of their responses yet or might still be auditioning. However, for those of you that do have an offer or have got multiple offers, it can be quite a lot to think about in terms of deciding if you want to accept an offer and which offer you want to accept if you have multiple ones to choose from. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some steps which you can use to help you decide if you want to accept a drama school offer, and if you do, which one you want to accept. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Millie, welcome to The Performing Arts and Me. I'm a second year musical theatre student currently training at London Studio Centre, and I make videos about drama school and things like that. So if you'd like to see more drama school videos, then please subscribe. I want to start this video by saying that just because you have a drama school offer or you have multiple drama school offers doesn't mean that you have to accept any of them. If you don't think that any of them are going to be a good fit for you, you could decide to take a year out, or you could decide to apply to some more schools which might still be auditioning, or you might decide the drama school's not right for you at the moment. You could also decide to accept an offer and go to that school for a year, but also still reapply to other schools so that you have somewhere else to go if you decide that the school isn't right for you. Okay, so now that I've clarified that, I'm going to start by giving 3 quick points about receiving and accepting offers and the types of things I suggest you keep in mind, and then I'm going to outline some suggestions for how you can decide between schools if you have multiple offers or decide if a school is right for you. Okay, so my first point about receiving offers is that it's important to keep an eye on your dates and your different forms of communication. So there could be different ways that a school might get in touch with you about an offer. It could be through UCAS, it could be through email. I don't know, some of them might ring you, sometimes they might send you a letter. So keeping on top of all of those things, keeping on top of your emails and your junk and things like that so you don't miss things. The reason it's so important is because a school might say, oh, you need to reply within a certain amount of time, or you need to get back to us by X in order to accept the offer. So you don't want to miss out on the chance to go to a school just because you didn't check your emails. So I definitely recommend keeping on top of that. If they do give you a date to get back to them, then it's important to keep on top of those and put them in your calendar, and maybe put like a reminder a couple of days beforehand to get back to the school if you haven't already, just so they've got time to process the emails. Obviously, I don't know how it all works, but like remember, weekends and bank holiday weekends, people might not be working. So I would just recommend making sure you've got back to them in a good amount of time where possible. Although if you've sent them an email by a certain date that they've asked for, then the email should have on it when it was sent. So hopefully that would be all right, but maybe try and get back to them within working hours on that day, or ideally a few days before, just to be on the safe side, in my opinion. Also, another note on that, with checking inboxes and things like that, or any other online software that they might use to give you your result back, maybe they have their own portal or something. If the school's given you a certain date that they will get back to you by, say you auditioned and they said, oh, we'll get back to you within 2 weeks, for example, and you haven't heard back from them within the 2 weeks, maybe give it an extra day or two, or like wait until the Monday if it's, say it falls on a weekend, in case they're not working. But if they've given you a date that you'll hear back by and you haven't heard back from them by then, and you've checked your junk email and any other way they might contact you, then I think it's okay to email them to just check that you haven't missed anything, to check they haven't missed sending you an email or something like that. I think also if they haven't given you a date that they'll get back to you by, but it's been a really long time, so I can't really remember what the time periods of mine were in terms of hearing back from schools, but I think if it's been like a month and you haven't heard back from them, then it's probably all right to email to check, just to make sure they haven't missed anything. So long as you word it politely, I personally think that that's all right. I think all of the schools did give me an answer, even if it was a no. So if you haven't got an answer, I would chase them up on that, so long as you do it politely. My second point is, if you do get an offer, then read whatever information they've given you carefully about how to accept that offer. There could be a few different things that you might have to do. You might have to do more than one for a certain school. You might have to reply to an email. You might have to accept it on UCAS or on UCAS conservatoires. You might have to fill out a form or sign a form or sign something else and send it back to them. You might have to pay a deposit. There's a whole different range of things that you might have to do, so make sure you read it carefully and check that you've done all the things that they ask you to for any schools that you're accepting offers for. Finally, one situation that might come up is if you have an offer from a school and they've given you a deadline to get back to them, but you're still waiting to hear back from another school. If that is the case, I would suggest emailing the school that gave you the offer and the deadline and asking for an extension, or contacting them in another way, phone, letter, I don't know, but getting in touch with them well before their deadline ends and say, I'm still waiting to hear back from some other places or another place. Please, can I have an extension? Could I get back to you in however long you think you need to be able to get back to them by? Again, as long as you're polite, I personally don't think there's an issue with this. Obviously, if this is your top school and you're not going to accept the other offer anyway over this one, then I would say to just accept this because they've given you it and there's no point asking for an extension, because obviously that's potentially a little bit more risky, but I still think it's worth doing if you're not sure between the two schools. And I'm pretty sure I asked for an extension from one of the schools that I received an offer for, and they were fine with it. They might say, sorry, we need to hear back from you by then because we need to let people on reserve list know, or something like that. But at least if you ask, you can find out if that's possible to get an extension rather than stressing for no reason. If you are going to do that though, I'd say to do that like in advance. I wouldn't recommend emailing them on the day that they're asking for you to get back to them by, and then emailing and being like, can I have an extension, on the day that they want a response by. I think you should give them a bit more notice than that. If you are also in that situation and this school hasn't given you a date that you're going to hear back by, it might be worth emailing this school and asking, do you know when I'll hear by? So you can then give this school the date that you'll be able to get back to them by. Okay, I'm now going to move on to part 2 and run through some steps that might be helpful in helping you to decide whether you want to accept an offer or not, or if you have multiple offers that you're interested in, then deciding between them. My first suggestion is to get hold of a sample timetable if you can. I personally think that this is one of the most helpful things you can have because it kind of shows you what your week might look like. It's worth bearing in mind though that from my experience anyway, drama school timetables can vary between different terms, between different year groups, between different years. Like my second year timetable I think is different from the second year MTs that came the year before because there was slight change made. So it's worth bearing in mind that things can vary from year to year and between term to term, but if you can get hold of a sample timetable, then I think that will be helpful. Anyway, so obviously they might not be able to give you an exact timetable, but being able to see what kind of classes you might have, what kind of times of day they might be, again, that can vary a lot, like even from student to student at LSE, that can vary, but it just might be handy for you to see how long the classes are as well, all that kind of information. You could try emailing the school and asking for one, or if they have an open day or an opportunity to visit, you could ask them then. But a lot of open days and like chances to visit come before the auditions or like on the audition day, so you might have already missed the boat on that one. If the school hasn't got one they can email to you, but you know someone that's been there, you could ask to see one of their old timetables, particularly like one of their first year timetables. If you don't know anyone, you could try messaging someone on social media. As long as you're safe and polite about it, I think that messaging a current student is fine to do. I have a video about my second year LSE term 2 timetable. If anyone's interested in watching that, I'll leave that linked up above too. My next step is to find out as much as you can about things that matter to you. I guess the timetable kind of comes into this, but some things you might want to think about or research are overall contact hours, what types of classes you might take, whether they do private singing lessons, what's the student support like, what's the accommodation like do they have any accommodation that they offer you, or is it all private accommodation? Are there any student halls, etc., like things like that? What are the class sizes like? What are their graduates doing? Are they doing the kind of things that you might want to be doing? What teachers or choreographers or industry professionals have been in recently or work there regularly? Although bear in mind that some teachers like work at multiple schools, they might move around and things like that. What type of course are they offering you? Are they offering you a degree, a diploma, a foundation? What's the academic work like? Is there any academic work? How many hours a week of lectures and things like that do you get? What's the typical year group and class size like? What are the facilities like? What facilities do they have? How many weeks of the year does the programme run for? Do they have long holidays? Do they do any performances, shows? What opportunities are there to be seen by agents? Or what kind of thing do they do for their third year show? Lots and lots of information you can find out about colleges, and there's probably more things that I haven't listed there. Different ways you can find this out could be through Googling things, looking at their website, looking at YouTube, like performance videos they might put on there from, like if they've done Move It, for example, they might have a video of their Move It performance, so you can have a look at that. Also things like, for example, my YouTube channel, I have vlogs and I have videos talking about my time at LSE. So looking at kind of student created content on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, also looking at the school's TikTok and Instagram and YouTube if they have one. You might be able to find their program specification on their website, or the college might be able to send it to you if you ask them for it. I'd also suggest emailing them if you have any questions. Also, it might be worth looking for information on fees and funding, but I'll talk about that more in a second. It is worth remembering when you're like researching things that things can change during the course of your training, particularly if you're there for 3 years. So they might have like a change in policy or change in building, they might move building, or they might have different teachers come in. Also classes and modules might change, like you never know what could change, but I guess you can only go with the information you've got anyway. So you might as well try and find out as much as you can. My next thing is to think about how your audition day was, like how you felt, what did the audition include, what was it like, and also like anything you learned from asking any questions or from going to like any talks that they had on their audition day, etc., and or from an open day if you went to one of those. My next point is, if you haven't been yet, I'd suggest going to visit. If you can't go in because it's not open, there's not an open day or whatever, then I'd suggest at least going to visit the area. And if you can't go and visit the area, then at least have a look at the area on Google Maps. Ideally, only look at the building, like the college itself, but also looking at like the area around it, because you're going to be living there. If it's like a degree course, you'd be living there for, or like around that area probably for 3 years. So it's kind of worth checking out, I think. If you are on Google Maps though, remember that things can change, like it depends how regularly it's been updated. The photos could be like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years old. I don't know how regularly they update Google Maps. Also, they might take some photos of areas whilst it's raining or whatever, and then photos of some areas whilst it's sunny. So try not to let that sway your decision, because obviously the weather can change. If you don't think you're going to take up an offer and you don't want to go and see it because it's a bit far away and you don't want to spend the money, then I still recommend at least having a look on Google Maps, because that'll give you some idea of what the area is like. My next step is to do with the financial side of things. So checking about whether it's affordable for you. So is the school offering you with your offer any financial support, or do they have financial support available that you could apply for? Are you going to get a student loan? Can your family help contribute? Do you have enough savings to pay for it yourself? Would you be able to get a job on the side and pay for it that way? If you think you will struggle to afford it, then I'd suggest letting the school know and getting in touch with them, because some schools do have scholarships, bursaries, grants, that kind of thing, and so they might be able to offer you some financial support if you get in touch with them and explain the situation to them. If they can't for whatever reason, then they might be able to point you in directions of other organisations that might be able to help you in terms of offering grants or bursaries or financial support. Also, it might be worth searching online, because I think there are like really specific random bursaries that people give out. When I say really specific, like they might have a series of criteria, like an 18 to 20-year-old who has lived in Essex for more than 3 years and wants to study in London can have this much money towards their course if they apply by writing a letter, or something really specific like that. Those kind of things do exist for different areas, different people, so it might be worth having a look online for things like that. There might not be one for you, but if you're struggling, it might be worth having a look. Also, it might be worth looking into seeing if you can get a sponsorship from a business or something like that. I don't really know much about how that works, but it could be worth researching into. You don't need to have it all worked out before you accept your offer. If you're accepting on UCAS, then I'm pretty sure you can only accept one offer and then you have to reject all the others. So if that's the case, then it might be worth working out the majority of the financial stuff, so you know you're not rejecting other options that might be more affordable for you if you couldn't go to that one because of the financial side of things. Also, if you have to do something like put a deposit down, then you probably wouldn't want to do that unless you were pretty sure that you'd be able to afford the rest of the course, because you probably wouldn't want to lose your deposit. My next suggestion is to take all of the information that you've got and create a table of pros and cons for the school or any schools that you have an offer for. This can be quite helpful to kind of see it all like spread in front of you, rather than having like information on this Google tab and on this Instagram account and blah blah blah, like collating it all and putting it in a table so that you can clearly see. And particularly if you've got more than one offer, and you can like put it in a table with rows, so like this school has this facilities, this school has this facilities, blah blah blah, and like fill out the table like that. I think that could be a helpful way for you to see it all in front of you and be able to make a comparison. My next suggestion is to speak with people about it. If you're speaking with people that have an understanding of drama school systems and of the industry, etc, then that can be helpful, but I'd say that is more helpful for finding out information about the school, so more helpful for the fourth point I was talking about, where you find out as much as you can about the school. If you are talking to people to find out information, or if you're messaging people on social media to find out information, then I'd suggest bearing in mind that different people can have different experiences. Just because someone has experienced something in some way doesn't mean that you necessarily will. However, it might also be worth speaking with friends, family, carers that don't know the industry, because they might offer you like a different perception of things, or like different things to think about. They might ask you questions about something that you hadn't even considered as being a criteria for whether you might want to go to somewhere or not. But yeah, they might be able to ask you questions that might help you think about things differently, so it might be worth talking to some of them too. Although at the end of the day, I think it should be your decision. They aren't the ones that are going to be training in a place for 3 years or whatever, and some parents or carers might have their own biases. Hopefully they'll have your best interest at heart, but particularly if you know more about the industry than they do, then try to use them as a springboard for ideas, but don't be too led by them. My next idea is, if you're really struggling to make a decision, this is something my mum used to suggest I did when I was struggling to make a decision, is to make a decision and like sit with it for a day, or like half a day, or an hour or two or whatever, and be like, right, I'm going to go to this school, or right, I'm not going to drama school, or etc, etc, etc. So have a think about it, make that decision and sit with it for a certain period of time with that as your like accepted plan. And then at the end of the day, or at the end of the period of time or whatever, if that doesn't feel right or you think you've made the wrong decision, then you can change it and try a different decision for another period of time the next day or for the afternoon or whatever, and try sitting with that one and seeing how that feels for you. Finally, as a Christian, I would suggest praying about it. It is quite a big decision to make, and I would suggest asking for God's guidance as you make this decision. Okay, and that is it for this week's video. If you found it useful, please subscribe for more drama school related videos, and if you've enjoyed the video then please do give it a like to let me know. And thank you very much for watching. Bye!